So for day two, guys, we had to get another early start as well, because one of the events that we wanted to go to started right when the convention started at 10 o'clock. And with my wife and I being retro gamers, the panel that they had were the top 100 NES games of all time. Maybe. It was basically a list done by a video game journalist, and he wanted to present that list before he placed it in his magazine article, and he just wanted to get fan input. And it was a very interesting list. They had a lot of the core games covered. I'm really grateful. Star Tropics made it on to the list as well because I really love that game. But when it comes to doing any kind of top games for the NES, it's always going to come down to two games. It's either going to come down to Super Mario Bros. 3 and The Legend of Zelda. Now, for me, just to cut a long story short, my favorite game of all time for the NES is Super Mario Bros. 3. It's my favorite Mario game. It's my favorite game for that system, and I doubt anything will change that, even though I haven't really played every game for the NES in all honesty. But for his list, he had the original Legend of Zelda, which is perfectly understandable. A lot of people love that game. And when it comes to, doing up any kind of top 10 list for the NES, it's always going to come down to those two games more often than not. But, there were some games that, that wasn't on his top 100 list that, I was kind of a little bit disappointed. Like one of my favorite NES games of all time, and it's very highly underrated, is Power Blade. I love that game. I think Power Blade is one of the best platforming action games I've ever played on the NES. And if any of you guys own it and you haven't played it, I definitely recommend that you give that game a try. Now, after that panel was over, one of the big events that we really wanted to go to is that Hideo Kojima was actually going to show up at PAX to actually talk about the past, present, and future of Metal Gear Solid. And according to talking to other people, he was actually going to announce a brand new Metal Gear Solid game. So that was one event that we really wanted to go to. Now my wife is not really a big Metal Gear Solid fan, but she's totally familiar with Hideo Kojima and his legacy and stuff like that. And in all honesty, when it comes to video game royalty, you can't really get any bigger than that guy. And so we really wanted to go to that event, but we knew that there was going to be a really long line, so we had to get there early just to make sure we got a good seat. And so we ended up having lunch a little early, and I think we got to the lineup for Hideo Kojima about an hour and a half before the event actually started. So we were just literally sitting on the sidewalk, just eating Subway. And we weren't the first ones there. There were about maybe 30 to 40 people ahead of us. So we pretty much just sat in the line, and I had my little 3DS handy, just using the Street Pass, getting all the puzzle pieces and stuff like that. And then it came to the event, and it was really great to see because this is pretty much my first time being so close to video game royalty. And we actually debuted a brand new Metal Gear Solid game, which was Metal Gear Solid Ground Zero. And he showed us, 15 minutes of footage of the game, and it was just absolutely mesmerizing. When it comes to Metal Gear Solid, I consider anime style, even though it's not really anime style, but I consider it anime style just because of in the first Metal Gear Solid game, there's a big reference to police knots, and the story really sounds like something that would come out of a serious anime anyway. But that's one of the few exceptions I'll make, because now I played Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, and 3. I haven't played 4 yet, or any of the original Metal Gear games for the NES. But it was just really great to see that trailer, and I'll definitely be playing Ground Zero in due time, but I don't really see myself playing it the moment it comes out, maybe 4 to 5 years afterwards. But Metal Gear Solid will always remain one of my favorite series of all time. Now, after that was over, we had the YouTube Meetup. at 3 o'clock. However, there was a Hideo Kojima signing at 3 o'clock as well. So I was kind of like weighing the options, do I go to the YouTube meetup, to meet guys that I watch on YouTube all the time, or do I stand in line and get something signed by Hideo Kojima? And I was really hoping to get my my copy of my Black Label Metal Gear Solid signed. So I did what any self-respecting husband would ever do. I made my wife do it. I know it sounds really horrible. I literally pleaded to my wife and saying, I really want to go to this YouTube meetup, but I really don't want to miss getting something signed by Hideo Kojima. So I asked her, do you mind standing in line and trying to get this signed, because I really didn't want to miss the YouTube meetup. And she reluctantly agreed, and she's a good sport. I'm really glad that she did. So I ended up going to the YouTube meetup, and it was really great, to meet a lot of people that I watch all the time. But I couldn't really get a chance, like to speak to everybody, because I guess, I'm a bit of a shy person, especially when it comes to meeting people. So it was really hard for me, to introduce myself, to people that I watch on YouTube all the time. But one guy that I knew I was going to meet up there was Techno Squeak, and it's really kind of funny because, I was chatting to the immortal John Hancock and like a few other guys, and like I was saying, it seems like I'm the only guy that calls Techno Squeak Squeaker. It seems like I'm the only one that gives him that kind of nickname, and I just said, yeah, I'm waiting for somebody. Techno Squeak's supposed to be here, and all of a sudden, the fucker, basically sneaks in behind me, and I didn't even see him coming, and I kind of made the joke to him, what are you, being like a little ninja? Sneaking up on me like that. So, I've been a big fan of, Squeak's channel, for a really long time, and, he's been one of my biggest friends to the channel. So, it was really nice, to talk with him. I had a few quick words, with Pete Dorr, but, like, I didn't really want to take up a lot of his time, because I know a lot of other people wanted to talk with him. I got to meet Metal Jesus Rocks and meet his wife, which, Jason, I think is Rebecca. If I get that wrong, I'm totally sorry, and you have the total right to kick my ass. And, she is an absolute and total sweetheart, and Jason, you are really lucky to have her. And, I had a chance, to talk with him a lot, and, he was a really cool guy. And, and then my wife eventually made it back. I told her I was going to be at the entrance of the convention center, where all the other YouTubers were going to be. But I was actually just a tiny bit disappointed because Hideo Kojima wasn't signing personal Metal Gear items. He was only going to be selling posters for the Metal Gear Solid 25th anniversary or something like that. So, I was kind of a little heartbroken. I never got my copy of Metal Gear Solid signed, but to get a signature from him on a poster is good enough for me. I definitely wasn't going to complain. And, I was really fortunate, I got to introduce my wife, to a lot of YouTubers, I introduced her, to Metal Jesus Rocks. But, I think, like, the one guy that, that really impressed me the most is, I got to meet John, Gamester81. And, John is an incredibly nice guy, and he's incredibly humble. I know he's a bit of a workaholic because he manages so much with, 4 separate channels, website, job, wife. And, he really made my wife feel welcome and made her feel like a part of the community, and, talked to her, and, I told him that she does films and, documentaries, and she's hoping to eventually break into that, and he seemed really interested, and, a little time later, he subscribed to her channel, so, I'm really happy that he's an incredibly nice and down-to-earth fellow. I think one of the best memories I have about the YouTube meetup was, my wife and I, we got to meet 2 new friends. 2 new channels that I wasn't subscribed to before. And these 2 people were incredibly nice, and that's Ball and Nick 1982 and Sarah, which is otherwise known as Movie Star Kitten. And it's kind of interesting because Sarah kind of initiated the conversation because my wife was wearing like a My Little Pony t-shirt. And and you know, both all four of us, you know, we just had a really good conversation, and you know, those two people are incredibly nice people. Like, the funny thing was is that, you know, I didn't recognize Ballin' Nick at first, but the moment that he told me his YouTube channel, and then I immediately recognized who he was. And then after I found out, you know, what the YouTube channels were, and my wife and I went home that evening, or back to the hotel that evening, you know, I subscribed to both channels, and you know, both people, they were incredibly nice, and they definitely made the YouTube meetup that much more memorable. I think the biggest regret I think I have about the entire YouTube meetup is I really wish I could have talked with everybody. You know, I never had a chance to chat to Drunken Master Paul at all. I never had a chance to chat to Jason Heine, but I think my biggest regret is that Caffeine Media Girl was there, and I didn't even know who she was because I wasn't aware that I didn't recognize her. I never knew that she had a YouTube channel until a month after Pax Prime was over, and I'm a really big fan of her channel, and I can really see her going big, you know, in the near future. You know, she definitely makes one of the most enjoyable channels on YouTube that I'm really enjoying. So, you know, I really wish you know, I had a chance to talk to her, but I just simply wasn't subscribed to her channel at the time, and I had no idea who she was. And the other thing with the YouTube meetup was, you know, I got to meet Brian Hughes, and you know, I knew Brian Hughes in passing. You know, he runs game deals in Vancouver, and he was very fortunate that you know, he asked me to go to the Vancouver Gaming Expo in November, and I went to that event as well, you know, back in November. So I'm really glad, you know, he personally invited me to go to that event. But overall, the YouTube meetup was incredibly enjoyable, and it was really great, you know, to see in person, you know, a lot of the channels that, you know, that I watch all the time, especially on my free time, you know, when I'm working up in Alberta. And before I forget, you know, I met the Comeback Kid as well. And, you know, he's a really nice guy as well, and you know, I talked to him a lot, you know, during the meetup, and you know, he runs a really enjoyable channel as well. So, you know, after the YouTube meetup was over, you know, we basically grabbed dinner, and one panel that we went to that evening was talking about global game controversies, like some of the controversies that games have to watch out for that can become incredibly controversial. You know, they were talking a lot about first-person shooters, and you know, when dealing with like Muslims, and you know, how careful that they have to be about that kind of thing. And one thing that I didn't even know is that they actually had an Uncharted-based game based upon, you know, a Muslim protagonist, and that was actually very interesting to see the types of games that were made in different countries. So that was actually a really enjoyable panel. Now, later on that night, we got to go to the one panel that my wife was excited about ever since she knew this panel was going to happen. One of my wife's favorite board games of all time is Cards Against Humanity. I had no idea what it was. I never played my first game until August, you know, before PAX Prime. And when she found out that the creators of Cards Against Humanity were going to be was going to be at PAX, she really wanted to go to it really bad, because they were accepting, you know, new ideas for cards, and you know, she really wanted to submit some ideas and stuff like that. So that was one of the last panels that they had that night. I think they had it at around 9:30. It went from 9:30 to 10:30, and it was definitely one of the biggest highlights of PAX. You know, it was just really enjoyable and just really hilarious, and just some of the evil ideas that like members of the audience came up with. Even though I think my wife had a pretty good evil idea for a white card as well. She wanted to use baby seals, or clubbing baby seals. You know, if you're a Newfoundlander, I guess you'll get the joke. But you never got a chance, you know, to shout out her idea. But it was still a really awesome experience, you know, to basically see the creators of Cards Against Humanity. And just before I go, guys, one thing that I wanted to mention about the YouTube meetup, I really wish that, you know, Siraxor was there. You know, he runs Bullet Heaven, which is literally my favorite YouTube channel on YouTube right now. But he was strictly there at PAX, for strictly business, and he was doing a lot of editing footage and stuff like that. And unfortunately, he couldn't make it to the YouTube meetup, which is kind of unfortunate, because I would have loved to meet him. But I understand, he has a lot of responsibilities, so it's perfectly understandable. So anyway, guys, that takes care of day 2. So on to day 3.